right, it's time for block number 5 of 6. So we've just got one more block after this one. So far we have done the New England star. We should have 2 of those. We've done the sawtooth star. Everyone should have 2 of those. We've done the patchwork sawtooth star, which is the same except that it has that 4 patch in the center. And we've done the pinwheel star. And we just did, that was our last one that we just did. And now we're ready for the Ohio star. This is the Ohio star here. And it has a different unit in it. We have not done this unit yet. And you'll see that unit right here. There are directions for this unit. This is called a quarter square triangle, and there's directions for it in your pattern. I'm going to demonstrate it here, but there are directions for it in your pattern. I think of it as a double half square triangle, and you're going to see why I feel that way about it. So this is our Ohio star. This one's going to be a pretty quick block. We're going to start out by making a half square triangle. You see I've already gotten started here. In fact, I've already made a couple of my quarter square triangles here. I just have one more quarter square triangle left to do. And you've seen how handy it has been to have these boards to lay my block out on. We're going to start like we have every half square triangle, with drawing a diagonal line on the back. And because this is a half square triangle, that is going to be our cutting line, not our stitch line. So I'm drawing that line across, that diagonal line. There we go. And I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch on both sides of that diagonal line. Flip it. There we go. And I'm going to cut on that diagonal line that I had drawn there. And we're going to end up with, as usual, our 2 half square triangles. But we're not done. We're going to give these a quick press. I'm going to just finger press them. You can press with your iron or finger press, whichever you prefer. I also have a roller sometimes that I use, a little roller thing that I sometimes use. So I'm gonna line these up, and what I'm doing is I'm just matching them up along that seam. I'm gonna nest that seam in there, and I'm lining up my corners while I'm doing that. When I nest that seam, I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to put it right in that seam where I've got them nested so that they stay nested. And I'm going to put a couple of other pins because this is a pretty big piece. And I just want to make sure that it's going to stay nested. This is easier if you've given it a good press first. So make sure you give it a good press. All right. Once I do that, I am going to put in, I'm basically going to treat this like another half square triangle. So once again, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner here. Okay, I've drew my line, and I'm again gonna stitch a 1/4 inch on both sides, just like I would if this was a regular half square triangle. And you see why I think of these as a double half square triangle. You're basically making a half square triangle, making two half square triangles, and then using those two half square triangles to make another half square triangle. Okay, I've got both of those lines, both of those seams stitched on both sides of that diagonal line. Now I'm going to cut on that diagonal line that I had drawn, just like I would if this was a half square triangle. And then I'm going to open it up, and I've got my quarter square triangle all ready to go. These are going to need a good press. After you press them, you're going to need to square them up. So press them and then square them up. They're going to be a little bit wonky because you're dealing with some biases here. So give it a good press. Make sure you square it up to the size that it indicates on your pattern. So I'm going to do that real quick and I'll be right back. Okay. All right, I got these pressed. I've squared up one of them. I wanted to show you how to square up the other one. All right, so you're going to take your square ruler, just like you do with your half square triangles. You're going to line up that 45-degree line with a seam, and you're going to line it up corner to corner. You're going to trim on two sides. And then turn it, line it up corner to corner with that 45-degree mark on your seam, and trim the other two sides just like you would a half square triangle. All right, so now we've got those ready to go. And our Ohio star is coming together really nicely. Look how nice that looks. Okay. All right, so now I'm ready to put each of my rows together. So just like with our other blocks, I'm going to get my 1/4 inch in there. I mean, it's basically a 9-patch structure that we're working with. You see the 9-patch? So we're just getting that 9-patch put together. Okay, getting there. This one does come together super quickly. And we learned a brand new unit, the 1/4 square triangle. Or, like I think of it, a double half square. Let me know in the comments, or if you are at Summers Haven in the class, let me know what you think. Does it seem like a double half square triangle? Okay. All right. Now, you're going to want to press so that your seam allowances go away from your 1/4 square triangle. And that's going to allow you to nest these seams together from these 3 rows. So I'm just giving a quick finger press to get that seam allowance going away from my 1/4 square triangles. Then I'm going to place it right sides together, nest those seams, put a pin in that seam to hold it in place. We are almost done. This is a really pretty square. It's simple, but it's very pretty, the Ohio Star. If you're a Corey Yoder fan, then you have probably heard her talk about the Ohio Star. It's one of her favorite quilt blocks because she lives in Ohio. She also includes it in a lot of her patterns. So if you've ever done a Corey Yoder pattern, you might have done an Ohio Star before. This particular pattern is not a Corey Yoder pattern. It's a Sherry McConnell pattern from A Quilting Life. But the Ohio Star always reminds me of Corey Yoder because it is her favorite. Okay, got that row done. Now we're going to go on to our next one. We're going to nest the seams. Just putting a pin in there to hold those seams in place that I've nested. Then I always like to put a pin at the end. I'm going to lower my needle into the beginning of the seam so I don't ever put a pin at the beginning. We're done. All that's left to do is to press and square it up. That's our Ohio Star. I'll give it a good press. That's our Ohio Star. Looks beautiful. Here it is in the blue version. So we've got both of our Ohio Stars ready to go. And that means we've got just one block left. That remaining block is the one with the little tiny pinwheel in the center, and it's called the Sawtooth Star with the pinwheel center. So it's a Sawtooth Star with a pinwheel center, and that'll be our last one